your name والتايتل تبع الجوب.
My name is Samia Bashir Abdurrahman and I'm a student.
Student إيش بس كده؟ طيب إيش هي القضية الصحراوية؟
Alright, so Western Sahara is Africa's last colony and it has been occupied by Morocco since 75 now, and essentially it is about right to self-determination, where the Sahrawi people, the people of Western Sahara, would have the choice to choose between integration or independence. Unfortunately, that right has not been granted or respected by the international community or Morocco for that matter. So today we have a situation where a country is split by the longest military wall in the world, around 2,700 kilometers long, with 9 million landmines, and people that are divided, half of them living under occupation in the occupied territories of Western Sahara, and the other half, around 150,000, living in refugee camps in southwest Algeria.
And who is occupying you?
We're currently occupied by Morocco, and we've been occupied by Morocco since 75.
Why?
Well, good question. There are two reasons. One reason which a lot of us could think of is natural resources. Western Sahara has large reserves of phosphate, which is a very important source of fertilizers for agriculture, and it also has one of the richest fishery grounds in the world. The coast is very rich, but I think the strongest reason for it is purely political. During the period of Hassan II, the king of Morocco, during the 70s, he was facing threats of a coup, military coup, and so he needed something to distract the people, and that's why he occupied Western Sahara.
And what's your greatest obstacle, politically speaking?
Today, the greatest obstacle, politically speaking, is definitely the support that Morocco is gaining from France. France being a permanent member of the Security Council, so they always threaten to use the veto to implement any solution to the Western Sahara conflict, and that's why it has gone on for now 36 years.
Western Sahara is regarded as non-self-governing territory. Do you support this idea or not, and why?
So the idea of non-self-governing territory came about during the colonialism time in the 50s, and Western Sahara was put in that list in 65 to be decolonized from Spain. Now, of course, I support the non-self-governing territory concept because it was to get rid of colonialism, and it was to get rid of colonialism through a referendum on self-determination. So it is, as a concept, of course, an important one and a good one for our international law and international order, but it can also be very politicized and not respected, which is what happened in the case of my people, and we're victims of that lack of fulfilling promises.
But do you have any kind of leadership at the country right now other than the occupation?
Yeah, so in 76 we declared an independent state, the SADR, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, which is today, it has been today recognized by over 80 countries around the world, and we are also founding member of the African Union when Morocco is not a member. So we do have a government. We have a government in exile. We have presidents. We have ministries and parliaments. We have a system that's probably amongst the most democratic systems in the Arab world, I would say. So we do have a country. We have a country. We have a people. All we need is the land.
And is any kind of protest happening against this?
So when Morocco occupied in 75, there was a war in 91. In 91 there was a ceasefire agreement. So we have been struggling peacefully since 91. And that peaceful struggle especially was to the highest point in 2005, when we had the second independence in Rwanda, which was led by students and youth, essentially demonstrating in the streets peacefully without having sit-in and hunger strikes. And ever since, we've been having those demonstrations in the occupied territories of Western Sahara and in universities in Morocco proper. But unfortunately, no one seems to notice our peaceful struggle, and it doesn't seem to be very interesting, quote unquote, interesting to the media to cover, which is very unfortunate, because, on the one hand, we're preaching this peaceful world and democratic values and all of that, but when we see an example of that, we don't seem to care or even support it.
Do you support the idea that mobilizing an international support for your struggle could be effective, and why?
So Western Sahara sometimes is also referred to as the forgotten conflict. To some extent, it's true, and I do believe that there are two ways of resolving it as quickly as possible. One is, which I would not approve of, which would be to start the war again to defend ourselves. Hopefully, I hope we don't have to resort to that. But the other one would be to especially mobilize an international support, civil society, grassroots support around the globe, and we've seen that had great impact in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, in South Africa during apartheid, and today in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And I think if we manage to do that, that would push governments, especially those those who are the troublemakers, i.e. the French government, would really hopefully bind into the pressure from their people. So yes, it's really important that we have this global support and to mobilize people to essentially defend this right, which is not just mine, it's your right, it's any person's right. It's a fundamental human right, which is the right to self-determination.
Your country seems to be a very peaceful in terms of the fight and struggle. Can you elaborate about this and tell us about an exemplary person that embodies this?
See, the unique thing about Western Sahara is it sort of breaks this stereotypical image of an Arab Muslim nation. You don't have any, suicide bombings or attacks or terrorist attacks. We never in our struggle history used any terrorism whatsoever. Instead, our only weapon is demonstrations, trying to find a diplomatic resolution, and hunger strikes. And one of the biggest symbols of our non-violent resistance movement is a woman of the name Aminat Haidar, and she's actually referred to as the Gandhi of Western Sahara. This lady has staged so many hunger strikes as long as 45 days, and she was subject to forced disappearance in the 80s. She was imprisoned and tortured in early 2000s, and today she's around 44 with 2 children and still continues to struggle. And again, she's just one example, but there are so many more human rights defenders and activists who are sitting today in jail because they simply were expressing their views peacefully, and it's really unfortunate that has to happen today, and most media doesn't even care to cover it.
If you have like a quick message to anybody who just started to know about your cause, what do you want to say?
My message to my is yes, there are justices take place today, and Western Sahara is not an exception. But it's very sad that we turn a blind eye to people who've been for 3 decades, and them to people everywhere around the world to educate themselves, first of all, to just do a quick search about Western Sahara, and this struggle is struggle for your rights as well, and to respect international order and international law, and that into 21st century we still have a colony in Africa, and it's Western Sahara, and that is absolutely unacceptable.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.